Welcome to Canada Files. I'm Valerie Pringle. My guest today is Randy Bachman, a legendary guitarist and rock and roller. He formed the bands The Guess Who and Bachman Turner Overdrive and had Billboard #1 hits with both of them, which is a rare feat. Randy hosted a radio show called Vinyl Tap for 16 years, which then inspired 2 books. And he's beginning his 7th decade of touring, these days with his son Tal. Randy Bachman.
Hi.
Hey, I get the feeling you just can't stop, you know, having too much fun. You're going to tour, die with a guitar in your hand.
Yep. It's what I do. It's what I wanted to do. Growing up in Winnipeg, that's all I wanted to do. Well, I started playing music when I was 5.
Well, you were a prodigy, really.
Well, apparently I was, starting violin at 5, and then getting to be 12, 13, 14, 15, asked to join the Winnipeg Junior Symphony and all this stuff. And that was kind of okay. And,
That was kind of okay.
Well, it was. But when you're 10, 11, 12, you want to like do things like other guys, and your teacher says you can't do that. Take care of your fingers. You can't play baseball. You can't do this and that because you stub your finger. You can't play the violin. And then I saw Elvis on TV, and that was it.
Give me
What's
a guitar.
that? It's rock and roll that's named Elvis. What? What's that name? Elvis. Elvis? You never heard that name in Winnipeg. Elvis Presley. I couldn't remember the name, but it was like the music that bam hit me. And then with the guitar player, Scotty Moore, and I stopped playing violin immediately.
But it seemed to me that you picked up a guitar, and from all the stories you've told your brother, you couldn't put it down. Night and day, light and dark, 24/7.
No, I had this, Elvis awoke this hunger in me that had been there, I guess, for a long time. And that was like something brand new, something rebellious, because I was a real little goody two-shoes. I couldn't play baseball or hockey because I'm protecting my fingers and stuff. And I have to get up every morning and practice violin for half an hour before school, and then after school for another half an hour. So I had this discipline of practicing at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, before you can go outside and play. And so I had that in me. And then, and it was kind of forced on me, because my parents are poor Winnipeg, you know, growing up people, and the $3 a week, whatever they're paying for my lesson, is like, it's a big deal. And so I did all the practicing, but by the time I hit 14 or 15, I'd hit my tipping point. I'd done my 10,000 hours of knowing music. And the great thing about violin is all you play is melody. So I get a guitar, and I figured out later, I wasn't reading music playing violin. I was just, my teacher would play it first. Here's Tchaikovsky, here's Chopin. And she'd play it, and I'd go, okay, and I'd play it, and she'd go, wow. And I was playing by ear. And so when I start to hear music on the radio, I just found the notes on the guitar and played I became a lead guitar player right away. That's what you play in violin. And then I was lucky enough to meet a guy named Lenny Bro when I was 15. He was 16, he had just moved to Winnipeg, he had no friends. I became his friend. I flunked grade 10, flunked grade 11. I spent 2 years with him every afternoon, and I learned a vocabulary on guitar that I'm still dipping into for the rest of my life.
Well, the magic seemed to happen for you, because you started bands and played in bands, but when you got together with Burton Cummings and Guess Who, just took off. So that was sort of a perfect combination with hits like, you know, These Eyes was the first one. Tell me the origin story for American Woman, because this is one of your great stories.
Well, we had been touring the States, and when you have one hit in the States, all they want to hear is one hit. So you try to play something else like that. So you end up playing 15, 20 minutes. And you start your set maybe Shakin' All Over, and then, because that was our old first hit, and then These Eyes, and that's all you got to play. And this was in the late 60s. So every time you go into the States, you've got a green card, they want to draft you. And Vietnam is going on, and there's nobody, we're going to a town to play, there's nobody between 18 and 35, our age, in a town, there's no men there. Like, women are coming and looking at us, we're like 20-year-old guys, 18-year-old guys, and we're like, we're a rarity in these towns. And we had a gig in Canada, in Kitchener-Waterloo, in a bonspiel, a curling rink. And I break a string, and I had no roadie, no tech, no spare guitar. And so Burton Cummings said, we're going to take a break while Randy changes his string. So I had no tuner, nothing. I get on my knees in front of his piano. The lights are now dark on stage. I'm kneeling in front of his electric piano. I'm putting the string on my guitar, and I'm on my knees, and I'm going boom, boom on the piano. I'm tuning my guitar to the piano. Dun 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 dun. I start to play that riff, and the audience, who's all talking amongst themselves, their heads snap, and they look at the stage, and I go, "Oh my God, I can't forget this riff. I can't stop playing it." So I stood up. And I go like this, and the drummer comes on stage, and Jim McHale, the bass player, comes on stage, and Burton's way out in the back of the hall. And when we would take a break as a band, we knew the next song that was going to start our next set. We'd go and start to play it. That would be kind of a call for everybody to come, instead of saying, "Hey, we're starting another set." And so we start to play the song, and Burton doesn't recognize it because he's never heard it before, and he's in the audience, and somebody says to him, "Why aren't you on stage with the band?" And he looks, and we're playing. He runs on stage, he goes, "That's a great riff. What is it?" I said, "Sing something, sing anything so I can remember this riff." And he sang American Woman, Stay Away From Me, because all these American women were kind of like grabbing at him and us, you know, as a band. And then he just became the next, and so that happened on stage. There was a magical thing that happened.
Of course, it was total magic.
And then he said the next night, "Let's do it again." And I had to try to remember the riff. And he said, "I want to put in something like, I don't want your war machine, I don't want your ghetto scene." I said, "Great, fabulous." And we always wanted to write a one-chord song. That's a one-chord song. It's like Whole Lot of Love or Hey Bo Diddley or something, because our songs, we were copying Brian Wilson, Bacharach David, the Beatles, who had like zillions of chords in a song. And so this was our one-chord song. And we had no idea. It went to #1 in the world, and then you had Cashbox, Billboard, and Record World, #1 in all 3 trades. It got to #1 before radio realized it was kind of an anti-war song by Canadians, saying, "We don't want your war machine," kind of thing. Because we were on such a roll, having These Eyes, Laughing, She's Come Undone, No Time, and then No Sugar Tonight was also a double A side of American Woman. So both songs were listed as #1 at that time. It was an amazing time for us. And we were making $750 a night. Suddenly our price jumped to $10,000 a night, and I had to leave the band.
Well, why did you leave the band? I mean, you didn't drink, didn't do drugs, didn't smoke, so there was a conflict.
Why I left is right there. It's called your gallbladder. I was having a gallbladder attack every night, didn't know what it was. So if you've ever had a kidney stone or gallstone or given birth to a child, because my daughters have had both, they said they're all just as bad. Gallbladder attack is just unbelievable. It's like the knife turning here in the middle of your stomach, and you're on the road. And my road manager would take me to the hospital, and they say, "Oh, we got to keep this guy overnight and give him something to drink and take an x-ray and anything. We got to drive in the morning to the next town. We got another gig, another gig, another gig." Finally, we had 4 or 5 days off, and I said to the band, "I've got to go home. I got to go back to Winnipeg to my doctor and see what's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. It's terrible." And so I went home, and he said, "You've got gallstones, you need a gallbladder operation. Don't eat this, don't eat that, don't eat this. You're going to have sugar-free Jell-O. You're going to have saltine crackers and skim milk." I had to eat that for 2 months, and lettuce, waiting for my operation.
But if you were sick, why couldn't you go back? Like, why the split with Guess Who?
Well, we were tens of thousands of dollars in the hole. I needed an indefinite amount of time off, because when they put you on this diet, you're not emergency anymore. They schedule your operation for like 6 or 7 months away. So you got to stay at home and not eat the foods you've been eating, which is like greasy cheeseburgers and stuff. And the band was in the hole, and suddenly they started making $10,000, $12,000 a night. I wasn't into that lifestyle. I was only into the music, and they were into the new lifestyle of the late 60s. And
so the band was into a rock and roll life, and
yeah,
you were
I was not.
Mormon,
I was
basically.
married.
Yeah,
I was married at the time.
Had kids.
And yeah, and my son Tal was born, and my wife's expecting the next child. And then it gets to the point where your kids don't know who you are. And
so that was a bit of a hard time, though, after Guess Who.
And some famous guy said somewhere, "The center cannot hold, things fall apart." I don't know who said it, Socrates or somebody. Life gets in the way, love gets in the way, drugs get in the way, things get in the way, and it's inevitable. You can't change what's going on.
But you reformed. I mean, just to move the story, you know, Bachman Turner Overdrive. You reform, get another band, and then, you know.
It's called franchising. Have you seen Dragon's Den?
Yeah.
Franchise. This worked, I'm going to do it again and franchise it.
But with more huge success.
Yeah, I was very lucky. After a year at home, when my gallbladder, all that issue was taken care of, I'm at home doing nothing. And I would find my body would rev up every night at about 8 or 9 o'clock. Like if you know a football player, hockey player, every Sunday night at 4 o'clock, boom, they're ready to play the Friday night football or Saturday night hockey in Canada or whatever. Your body kicks in. And my wife said, look, whatever you got to do, start another band. You're driving me nuts. You're up at 2 in the morning, you're playing records downstairs, you're playing guitar to records, go play with a band. So I started another band, and it took a while to get going. We had to do 300 days a year on the road for 3 years in a row. That took its toll on my marriage. And I was determined to make it again, and then the same thing happened. You played the same songs in the beginning, nobody gives anything about it. And 2 years later, you've got 3 albums in the top 50. One's number 1, one's 18, one's 48. Your single's number 1. There's 2 other singles on the charts, and you go, what happened? We're playing the same songs. There's just a turnover of
Something
who likes
works.
what, and
Yeah.
radio giving you airplay, and you build up a momentum. And then you had to have a momentum. There was no MTV or much music or anything. There was no videos. Everything was, you got to go here, you got to go there, and hope they remember you and put out another record or they're going to forget you. And so we're supposed to put out an album every 2 years. We put out 3 albums the first year and a half. And then suddenly they were all on the charts and selling millions of copies.
So the best BTO songs, what do you figure? Taking Care of Business? I mean,
Probably.
Yeah.
That's
And did the pizza guy delivery guy really play on that
played
recording?
the piano. That's a long story.
Can you make
how the song was
can you
written.
make it short?
Well, I started to write the song in '67 to copy Paperback Writer. It was called White Collar Worker. And then fast forward or zoom forward about another 5 or 6 years, I'm in BTO. We're playing in North Vancouver. I'm crossing the bridge. Daryl Burlingham, you probably knew him from music here, Daryl B. from Chum and Vancouver at CKLG Radio. He's on the radio. I'm crossing the bridge to go to North Vancouver. We're playing 6 nights a week in a club. And he said, Daryl B. on C-Fun Radio, we're taking care of business. And I went, oh, what a song title, Taking Care of Business. That's amazing. And we did it live on stage. And it was the same feeling as years before doing American Woman. You're open and you're channeling this thing, and the angels of song are shooting ideas out, and you go, thank you, this is amazing. And you're kind of open for where the song's going. And the song was a hit that night. We went to record it 2 weeks later. And while we were listening to the playback, a guy knocked on the door. And we had been in the studio at that point for 14 hours that day, and he had pizzas. And I said, down the hall, Steve Miller's in B, Wars in Studio C. They probably ordered pizza. We're going down to sleep. And he came back about 5 minutes later. Said, yeah, I got rid of the pizza. And he said, I said, yeah, he's standing there. I said, yes. And he said, I've been listening to the song for like 10 minutes outside the door. It sounds like it could use a piano. And I said, well, we're just guitar, bass, and drum. I know Little Richard and Elton John. I might get them to play on it later. He said, I'm a piano player. Can I have a shot? I said, what do you mean? He said, I don't deliver pizza unless it's the end of the month and I can't pay my rent. That's why I'm here. I said, okay, we'll give you a shot. And we put a mic in. He played the piano 1 track and he went home. And he went actually delivering pizza. We went back to our hotel. The next day, the head of our label flew in. And when he came in and he heard the album, I said to the engineer, don't play the piano track. Leave it off. We hadn't even heard it back. The guy played it and we left. Halfway through the song, the engineer pushes up the volume control and in comes the piano. And the head of our label, Charlie, said, what is that? BTO with the piano, that's magic. Elton John owns a lot of real estate on AM and FM radio. He's all over the airwaves. And you guys having piano will get you some of Elton's real estate on Top 40 radio, and that's what we want. If you think you're doing fine now with album music on FM, wait till you get Top 40 music. You're going to double your income and your audience and all this stuff. And he put the song out with that guy playing piano. And that was a break for him because he became Bette Midler's musical director on her first North American tour. And when I was lucky enough to play with Ringo Starr All-Star Band in '95, the tour ended in LA at the Greek Theater, where the LA Philharmonic rehearsed, and their pianist was Norman Durkee, the same guy. So I got to see him again. So
Now-
that's the story of the pizza guy.
You've had Billboard #1 songs with 2 bands, which is rare.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? Just your incredible charm and talent?
I don't know, because if I knew, I would do it again. I've been trying since then.
There's that famous Leonard Cohen line. I remember he said something like, if I knew where the hits came from, I'd go there more often.
I watched Hallelujah on the plane coming here. It's a great song. I have a very similar story. Here's what my son said. A documentary is being done now. I'm getting my Gretsch guitar back after 47 years being stolen from the Holiday Inn in Don Valley there near Phase One studio. He said, this guitar was magic for you. And it was just quite an amazing thing. And to get the guitar back was like somebody knocking on your door and saying, you remember the little dog you had named Tippy that got run over by a truck when you were 10 and broke your heart? I've got Tippy's grandson. I've had a couple of litters, and here's Skippy. And you go, whoa, this is just like Tippy. You know, I got my guitar back. And after that period of time, and it was...
How long was your guitar missing?
47 years. Never found
And then
it.
what happened? How did
Because of the COVID shutdown, we couldn't do gigs. My son Tal and his partner Coco lived in Vancouver. She got shut down. She had a beauty salon. She was doing hair and makeup for a movie, and they got shut down. And she said, we're shut down. I've got 3 cameramen and 3 sound men. Why don't you do a YouTube? We don't know when you're going to do a gig again. We're still getting paid. This is like 2 weeks into COVID. We didn't know it's going to be years and years. So we started to do that. And on one of them, when you're doing live YouTube, we did this every Friday at, it was called Bachman Bachman, the train wreck. We called it the train wreck because it was. Down the side of the screen is a little black column. It'll say, nice pants, bad hair day, wrong key for the song. And one of them said, found your Gretsch. And I said to Tal, call this guy. The guy lived in White Rock. We were in Victoria, and we used to live in White Rock. So he calls this guy. His name is William Long. And he shows us a video of a guy named Takeshi singing Jingle Bell Rock in a nightclub. And he doesn't know any English. He sings phonetically. He's like the Japanese Brian Setzer, rockabilly, with my Gretsch rockabilly guitar. And I look at the guitar, and it's my guitar. So because Tal's partner, Coco, is Japanese, she contacts the guy, and in Japanese, she sets up a Zoom. He shows me my guitar. I'm in tears because he's got Tippy, my little dog that's been run over, and he's got Tippy's brother, grandson or something, and it's my guitar. And he says, I'm an honorable man. I've had this guitar 4 years. It spoke to me in a music store. It said, I'll help you write music. So I bought the guitar. I've written many hit songs with this now for the people who win Japanese Idol and Japan's Got Talent and all that stuff. And this guitar is magic. It's a magic guitar. And I'll give it back to you. I go, wow, I'll give you a brand new Gretsch. And he says, I don't want a brand new Gretsch. I want its twin. What? You want a 1957 Gretsch with black D-Armond pickups that hasn't been modified or repaired? Yes. Okay. We get off the Zoom. I make one phone call to a friend of mine in Loveland, Ohio, Gary's Rare Vintage Guitars. He said, I've got 3 of them. So we do another Zoom with Takeshi and say, we got the twin sister, okay? We're guitar brothers. We can't even talk to each other unless Coco's there to translate. But I'm going to bring the sister, and we're going to trade the twin sisters. And I'll send it to you. He said, no, I'm not going to put this on an airplane. You must come to Japan. When I gave him the hug and gave him this twin guitar and got the twin sister back and put it on, and the guitar felt my heartbeat and me breathing, and I put my arms around it and played it. It was amazing. And we played taking care of business. It was just fantastic.
Wow.
And I just got it back.
You're a guitar hoarder, right? How many guitars do you have?
How many pair of shoes do you have?
Not as
How
many.
many purses do you have?
Not as many as guitars as you
I
have.
always say that to a woman when she says how many. I say, how many pairs of shoes have you got? Because of this lost Gretsch, I collected Gretsches. Everyone that came. I had 350 of them. And I ended up selling them to Fred Gretsch. So now the Gretsch Museum in Savannah, Georgia. And I just talked to Fred last week. He's thrilled. Everybody's going to, it's a destination. I go to Savannah, Georgia. The Gretsch Museum is there. It's the Randy Bachman Gretsch Museum. So that was a fantastic thing for me.
And think about the choices you made. What were the right choices?
Who knows, if I had taken care of my medical thing and went back to the Guess Who and everything was lovey-dovey kumbaya, there never would have been a BTO. might have never written Taking Care of Business, which is like my party song, right? And You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, the song that everybody knows all around the world. That might have never happened. We got invited to Woodstock and didn't go. We had just done the Seattle Pop Festival a month before, which was 3 days of glorious sunshine with the same bands. Nobody filmed it because it was a perfect pop festival. They filmed Woodstock because it was a disaster. It was been raining for 4 days. There wasn't enough toilets. There wasn't enough water. Everybody was coming there. I looked at the news and said, I don't want to go there. Joni Mitchell didn't even go. She stayed in her hotel room in New York. Neil Young and the guys went. That was the beginning of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. It was their first gig. There's a lot of crossroads that you come to that you don't go here, but if we had gone to Woodstock, we would not have gone to Chicago and recorded American Woman because we recorded it right after we wrote it. So there's all these things I look back and go, what if we had gone to Woodstock? Well, we wouldn't have had American Woman. Well, we would have been famous because the Who were famous and everybody else, but it would have been a different kind of famous. I don't know. I don't know. You don't know.
So what do you think your greatest talent is?
I think a work ethic that every time I came to a crossroads or a slowdown or an opportunity to slow down, and people said, well, you were in a band that hit #1 album and single, well, it was time to pack it in. I said, screw that, I'm not packing, I'm starting another band. So we do another band and it happens. And then that happened. And then I turned 60 and somebody says, time to retire. And I say, no way. And I get a radio show on CBC that runs for 15 years. I'm not stopping. The rock is keeping on rolling, right? And even now, I'm doing a little tour here with my son, Tal. Coco's on drums. She's an incredible drummer. And we're just doing a Bachman tour, like a living room tour. We're doing some train wrecks. People are going to send up requests. We don't know which they're going to send. Try to play them and sing them. We'll do some of our hits. And we're going to do some of our new Bachman album that we wrote during COVID. That's all kind of songs about the world and where are we going and what happened to us and how we all lost loved ones and we had no control. Like nobody had any control in the last 2 or 3 years. But where you go, where you worship, where you ate, where you went, you can't visit your parents who are sick because you can't go near them, all over the world. And we see this happening because we travel the whole world. And so the music reflects a lot of that. It's some of the best music I've ever written because it's really from inside and things that I was actually experiencing and directly writing about that.
Does it rankle you you're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
No, I gave up on that long ago. I had this discussion yesterday with Larry LeBlanc, who's a Canadian, stalwart, been our press agent since 1964, 65. He and I were chatting yesterday. And he said, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is still chosen by Jan Werner, the guy who owned Rolling Stone magazine, started. He never liked BTO. He never liked the Guess Who.
But the Simpsons loved BTO.
Yes.
And I think the fact that BTO was on an episode of The Simpsons is...
That was legendary for me. You know what? The Simpsons were so real at that time. They were like the Archie Bunker cartoon, right? He was like the grumpy Archie Bunker kind of thing. And when I went to do the show, they wouldn't let me be in the room with the other voices. They said, you'll be in awe when Yardley Smith is doing her voice and the other guy's doing the other voice. We got to do you alone. Then you could come and see them later. So you got to go out and say, hello, Cleveland, like hello, Springfield. And I go, hello, Springfield. No, that's for 2 people. Now do it for 20 people. Do it for 2,000. Hello, Springfield. And then when you do that, they film you. Then they cartoon you for the cartoon. They actually get you doing it.
So who needs the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when you've been on The Simpsons?
Yeah, well, I'm in the Canadian Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, and the Junos and the Walk of Fame because of the Guess Who and BTO. I'm very grateful for that.
The question that we end these interviews with is, what does being Canadian mean to you?
It kind of means everything. In the Guess Who, we blatantly were called the Beaver Patrol, which has many meanings. We had the red maple leaf. BTO, our big gear. What's the middle of the gear? Being a TNO and a Canadian maple leaf. It set us apart from everybody else. When we left Winnipeg on one of our trips, Stephen Juba, a nice Ukrainian guy, was the mayor. He gave us little red maple leaves to wear in our lapels. And he said, and we were going to England, wherever you're going in the world, tell them that you're Canadian. In England, in Germany, tell them you're Canadian. And when you go home and your mother's doing your laundry and you're eating her cookies and you're mowing your own lawn and taking out the garbage, it's wonderful to go home and be a normal guy, because when you're on the road, you are a machine. no matter what happens. You've got to get out there at night with a sore leg or a sore back or the flu or a cold and do 100% because somebody's paid $2 or $200 to see a perfect rendition or hear their songs like they're in the memory. So when that is done, you go home, you just kind of fall apart and you do normal things. And it's great to be a home guy. It's great to have a home to go to, and the home being Canada or Winnipeg or Manitoba or West Kelowna where we grew up. And wherever the family is, you realize that's where home is. So,
Life is sweet.
yeah, thank you.
Randy, thank you so much.
Thank you. Been great.
Great to see you.
See you in a year, okay?
See you in a year.
I'll have a #1 in a year. I'll be back. Rotten Tomatoes,
we'll be back
#1.
with you, no matter what.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching Canada Files.
The preceding program was made possible through the generous support of Kathy and George Dombrowski, as well as the following donors: Ted and Alice Kernahan, the Browning Watt Foundation, Mary Davey, Michael McCain and family, Tony and Sherry Fell, David and Cheryl Carr, Bryce and Nikki Douglas, Richard Wernham and Julia West, Charles and Marilyn Bailey, Richard Pilasoff, Clench House Foundation, Jim and Sandra Pitbledo, the 63 Foundation, and by the Central Canadian Public Television Association.